I am pleased to introduce our speaker for the day. Adam Kreek is one of North America's top executive business coaches, specializing in leadership development and strategic planning. From winning an Olympic gold medal to surviving an epic 6,700-kilometer transatlantic rowing expedition, to a Stanford University education and coaching leaders of Fortune 500 companies, his experiences are one of a kind. Whether through coaching, speaking, or his book, The Responsibility Ethic, he's a powerful guide who shows audiences how to realize untapped potential through self-leadership, moving thousands of people to action at organizations like Microsoft, Mercedes-Benz, Million Dollar Roundtable, General Mills, and more. Today, he shares how understanding our values can help us become resilient leaders in the face of change. Welcome, Adam. Good to see you again.
It's great to see you, Teresa, and welcome everybody from all over the place. I'm glad that you have been able to join us. I've got a question, and that question is how? How do you explain when things don't happen the way you think they should? Another way of saying that is when all signs point to one result, how do you explain when the opposite result occurs? I think of Lego. In 2004, was on the brink of collapse. Lego was about to go bankrupt, but they drastically turned their business around and came out on the other side as a company that is now, enduring and one of the most popular toy brands in the world. Netflix, for example, almost went bankrupt in the early 2000s when their DVD mailing service turned into a streaming service. So how did they endure this change and come out on the other side with a culture that's known and respected for having people who work for it in a high-performing manner and people who treat one another like adults? Patagonia is another great example. This clothing brand almost went bust, but somehow they were able to turn around in the depths of an overexpansion and realign with something that pushed them through. And so the question remains as this: why did these companies survive when they had the same access to information, the same access to capital, the same access to people and resources that all of us have? Why did they survive while others didn't? The argument that I'm presenting today is about values and how you, by understanding your personal values, and two, by understanding and living the values of your organization, can endure change, and not just endure change, but thrive in the face of change. And I'll be presenting 3 points today very quickly at a very high level. We don't have a lot of time today, so I want to brush over it very quickly and hope that you can get a very high level of what I'm talking about. The first point is this: change is not a crisis unless a core value has been violated. So change in its own is not a crisis. It's only a crisis if a core value has been violated. Two, we can find our enduring core when we claim our values and navigate change confidently. And three, crisis then becomes an opportunity for us to revisit our values and to practice leading with our values. So before we get into it, and before I talk about these points, I think we need to all be on the same page. What are values? Values are something that's thrown around. It gets confused with other words. Values can be confused with virtues. Values can be confused with principles, with passion. But truly, what are values? And how do we use them? Values are states of being or standards of behavior that we judge to be important in life and business. And when used properly, values act as an invisible manager on our shoulder, enabling us to filter decisions and articulate the beliefs that we hold dearly in our lives. I'd like to talk about where values come from, and values really come from that emotional experience. That place that's one level below language. And in fact, values is the first step in articulating what we truly believe and what we truly feel deep down inside. And when we can articulate those values, we can create rules in our life, rules that we call principles. And by adhering to those principles, we can create then a strategy to achieve a vision, to achieve our mission in life. And then we can start setting goals. And when we have goals, we can start moving along and use tactics. Common vernacular, a hack, right? A hack is a tactic to achieve your goal more quickly. We start taking action, and then we start to get results, and those results then inform what we believe. And our beliefs are either reinforced or beliefs slowly change over time if we keep getting feedback from improper results. And you can actually break this cycle into two sides. You can break this cycle right here into the fast cycle and the slow cycle. And often we're caught in this fast cycle where we set goals and we're using tactics and we're looking for the shortcuts and we're looking for to take action and get the results. And we go round and round and round. We get caught in the whirlwind and we don't take time to actually step back. Step back and use our slow thinking, smarter brain. And this is where the proper strategy comes from and where we can articulate our values and use values to be better and to live more aligned lives. And there are lots of examples of values. As you can see right here, right? You're looking at all these values coming up. There's a lot of them. And the reason why I put all these on the screen for you to look at is that we're all individuals. We all have different ways of experiencing the world, and so we have different values. And as you can see, there's a lot of words, and that was just A to C. There's a whole lot more. I'll put it up full screen so you can see them all. Look at all these values. You can pick a value that resonates with you. Lego, as we go back to the beginning, Lego fundamentally changed its turnaround by visiting its values and its brand values and saying, what do we stand for as an organization and how do we use that to relate to the people out in the marketplace? And their turnaround in 2004 was dictated by identifying and articulating and affirming these values. Likewise, Netflix used this set of values to create a set of principles and define their culture to make sure that they had a high-performing culture with individuals who treated one another like adults. Likewise, Patagonia, when they were in the depths of pain, revisited their values and ranked their values. They said, number one, the most important value in our organization is quality. Two, we need to make sure that we're acting with integrity. Three, when quality and integrity are taken care of, we need to focus on environmentalism. And of course, we need to be innovative. These are their values. And obviously, we're working with an organization, Teresa Lynn, the NSB, one of the finest speakers bureaus in North America, is a values-driven organization operating on 6 sets of core values. And I've talked about organizational values, but I've also liked you to think about your own personal core values. If I was to define what I valued as an individual, I would put these words up to say, if I'm not living in a state of loving connection, achieving excellence, generating impact, vital sensation, or growth and flow, then I'm experiencing a crisis. But if I can connect this value with an action, I can live in a state of growth, of flow, and be the person I want to be the grounded, rooted, confident person I want to be. And so the question I have is, one, how aligned are your personal values to the values of the organization you work with? Because if there is a values misalignment, you will find pain, and that's where crisis appears. When there's a misalignment between your personal values and the values of your organization, or your personal values and the values of even your society. So the question is, why do values matter? Let's go to the science. And there's a lot of science that supports values. And we found that when people know their values and have affirmed their values, they're more open to new ideas. Scientists have also found that if you insult someone and put them in a room with a plate of cookies, if their values have not been affirmed, they'll eat more cookies. But if they have affirmed their values and know what they value, in fact, they are able to show that they have more willpower. There's a lot of other research that comes out that shows you can lose weight, stop smoking, start exercising. You'll have a higher pain tolerance. You'll be more confident, more hopeful, more at ease. You'll be more connected, operate in a better mood. And there's even physical markers that have been monitored. There's less inflammation, lower blood pressure. So we know values have a positive impact on the psychology and the physiology of an individual. But more than that, moving into the business case, I'll put this on full screen so that you can read it. Those who have clear values and are seen as having clear values are rated as being 40% more effective by others. And those who have clear values will rate themselves as being 25% more effective than those who do not. And in fact, it's been shown that a values intervention, just one values intervention for articulating, affirming, and acting upon your values creates a rapid upward spiral of performance. Values themselves, like I said, they're beliefs. They root you. They are most natural motivators. They act like a compass. They drive you. But beliefs and their crux are violated in a crisis. And if you look back at your life and even look back at the past few months where we've endured this coronavirus, I think you can think about the times where you've experienced happy successes and even happy failures. You know, the positive serendipity of the coronavirus impact, spending more time with family, new business opportunities, new relationships, deeper, more meaningful relationships. But we've also had sad successes and sad failures in the face of the coronavirus. So to go quickly over 3 case studies to reinforce this point. One, change is not a crisis unless one or more of your core values has been violated. I've consulted with an airline MRO that's a manufacturing company, a manufacturing repair organization on the west coast of Canada for the last 4 years. I worked them through a corporate values discovery process where we uncovered 3 core values. I've put one up here, but be open, drive improvement, and show respect were the 3 core values of this organization. Not only were the leaders of that organization very familiar with those values, they knew the values, they operated with those values, but they were also very aware of what their personal values were within that organization. And by articulating what my personal values are and how they relate to the organizational values, I'm then able to lead my team within that large organization through my value lens and through the value lens of the organization. And likewise, this is a multinational organization with people coming from over 60 countries and offices in China, in Serbia, in Germany, in Canada. And in fact, we defined leadership values because the way people lead from different cultures is different. So clarifying those allowed for a very strong values alignment. And in fact, what I saw within this organization was a noted lack of crisis. A noted lack of crisis, especially in an industry impacted heavily by change, aircraft maintenance. And so knowing your values and knowing how you are living your values in the face of change allows you to keep a level head and stay focused in the face of change. The second point, recognize your enduring core and claim your values to navigate change confidently. Just 2 days ago, I did a keynote to over 300 sales professionals at Pfizer. And at Pfizer, not only did we remind ourselves of the values that we held dear as an organization, but the individuals were given the opportunity to explore their own personal values. And this created an alignment that gave them confidence to push through the change and gave them the boost that they needed to keep continuing. And again, if you think of these medical sales professionals, they're used to going into a hospital, talking to the medical professionals, sharing with them the industry knowledge that can help them do a better job. And they're no longer able to do that. They've had to change. They've had to reduce their pay by 80%. They were enduring a lot of change. And by revisiting their values, the individuals on this call were able to claim a lot of confidence. And I'll finish with one final case study, and that crisis is an opportunity to practice leading with your values. I was working with the chief marketing officer of one of Canada's top performing financial institutions. And the conversation right around the time of COVID hit was, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling ineffective, and I'm feeling underappreciated. And by going through the process of values articulation and affirmation, which took a couple of months, reflection, the process is articulation, being able to to say what your values are, affirmation, having a reinforcement that these values truly reflect who you are, and acting, taking actions on those values to change your reality and change your situation. And we identified a number of core values within this senior leader. And they were able to identify that curiosity, conscientiousness, respect were three values that were present, but weren't always expressed effectively within their leadership practice. And over a number of months of moving through this values articulation process of articulating, affirming, and acting, we were able to make a significant breakthrough where their severe anxiety was gone, where they gained a lot more respect within the workplace, and in fact, was able to earn more money and gain more ownership within the firm. It's a pretty inspiring story when you come to think of it. So I'll leave with a couple of these points, and I'll put them on the full screen for you. So if you're struggling personally or professionally through this pandemic, it's helpful to recognize which values have been violated in this crisis. Change alone is not threatening nor stressful. It's when our values have been uprooted. Each of us has a changeless core inside, and that changeless core can be most effectively reflected by articulating and affirming our values. And if we focus on our changeless core and we claim our values, we can harness a power in the face of change, and we can find the pit grit to get through that pit of change to get to the other side. And the process is relatively simple. And I would encourage each and every one of you paying attention to this webinar right now. One, consider what has upset you most in this pandemic. Two, identify which underlying value has been violated. And three, set goals to employ this value or another complementary value in your new normal environment. And again, the process is very simple. Articulate your values, affirm your values, act upon your values. And I'll leave you with this final thought. The unexamined life will crumble in the face of change. Live your values, claim your life, reconnect with your soul. So what I'll do now is I'll load this back up, and we'll open it up to questions. And let me see what happened here. The Q&A piece. I've got one here right now. How can employees use personal values to truly align and adjust change management, and how long does it take? So like I said before, a values intervention process, it only takes one to drastically change the trajectory of somebody's life. How long does a values intervention take? I would say you can run a workshop and an education session in about 90 minutes, and that's something that I can certainly run remotely. You can talk to Teresa about the different offerings that I have, but in about 90 minutes, we can run employees through the education process of what is a value, why are they valuable, how do you use them to change the trajectory of your life. And what this does is it plants a seed. And because values are rooted in our beliefs, it takes a long time to actually wrap your head around this. So I would recommend actually having 2 or 3 sessions. So say a 90-minute intervention, and then come back in 1 month, and then come back in 3 months, and revisit values, talk about them again. A big part of the process is to actually speak about your values, set goals about your values, then think about the results, discuss those results. And there's a lot of conversation therapy and personal reflection that comes into play. Journaling is a very useful tool in values alignment. and in, you know, making sure that your actions and results are reflecting your values and you're moving in that right direction. So I would say at a bare minimum, a 90-minute session would work. What I've seen from it being most effective is actually having a one-on-one coaching session. So, you know, for individuals that are high potential or have high impact on your organization, I would recommend going through the values affirmation process and then having regular coaching conversations over the next 6 to 8 months to uncover work and leadership issues and placing a values filter through that so that the individual can fully understand how to apply and use that practice. So Ethan came in and he said, in your experience, what is one value you see the most around newer companies in 2020? Well, the one value I see a lot is the value of inclusion. Inclusion is very important in the diverse society that we live in. I see that value popping up a lot. Everyone wants to feel included. Obviously, there's the Black Lives Matter event that happened down south, and we want to make sure that we're not doing anything unconsciously or consciously that would make people feel left out. So that's one theme that I've seen in a lot of the organizations I've worked with. And I'd come down to, you know, excellence, performance, results. That's another value that, you know, that isn't necessarily new and tends to stand the test of time, because I think, you know, at the crux of it, there are people who are very competitive and want to deliver strong results. And so I'd say that value tends to be at the core of a lot of organizations I work with. They want to perform, they want to deliver results. And so that's another trend I've seen, but that's not necessarily a trend of recent times. It's something that's just underlying what people are looking for. So from another attendee, I'd like to hear comments regarding creating a culture of values in the workplace where the CEO and board don't buy into the concept. Thank you. So every company has a values-driven culture. And the reason why the CEO and the board may not buy into the values is possibly because there's a values misalignment between the board and the CEO and the stated values. Values can often just be words on a wall that people look at. And this is the issue, and this is what caused me to dig deeper into the values discovery process, because often when you show up to an organization, you see, oh, we value integrity, trust, and commitment. And people are like, well, yeah, of course. But why did you put integrity, trust, and commitment up there, and you didn't put inclusion, teamwork, and curiosity? And I think this starts to become more of an interesting conversation. And even when you look at the election, you've got the US presidential election, looking at that through a values filter. Values exist on a hierarchy. And just because you value one thing doesn't mean the other person doesn't value it. They just might value it a little bit less. And so when you're choosing values for your company, you're saying, I value this state of being more than those other 400, 500 values that I could have put on the wall. I put this value up there and not those others because of this. Because this identifies what we believe, how we work, and who we want to work with. So again, when we go back, if the CEO and the board don't buy into the concept, one, they either do not understand values, or two, they have values that sometimes might feel in conflict with the other values that HR might want to be promoting. Often, the mistake people make within values is that I put up these values as something I hope our company could be, but that's not truly how you define a culture, right? What value should be is like, this is how our culture operates, and this is how we operate. And so I think that there's so again, the solution of having a CEO and a board not buying into the values is simply, one, making sure that they have the right values education in line, and 2, understanding what they truly value, because you don't understand someone's values by what they say. You just understand someone's values by what they do. So for example, if someone, and I've seen this before, you have an executive that says, one of our value is frugality. We're going through times of change and we need to really manage our expenses. And then that executive hops into their $250,000 car, drives to their private airport, hops on their private plane that is funded by the business, and zooms around. That doesn't necessarily align with the values that they're talking. We understand someone's values by watching what they do, not by listening to what they say necessarily. So I would sit down and I would have a conversation with the CEO and with the board and ask them, what values truly does the organization represent, and how living those values will impact the mission and the vision of the organization. Because I think the reason why executives may shy away from values is because they fear that those values will get in the way of results. They fear that following different values will get in the way of results. Is there a website or resource that you recommend to affirm values for an individual? I actually have a resource on my website. It's in a rough draft, and I can distribute it to you if you like. So feel free to, would you be willing to collect requests, Teresa? So feel free to send Teresa requests if you want, and I'll send you the values and education program that I have, and feel free to run through it. You can do it alone. If you like it, feel free to hire me to come into your organization and run it. It's a very useful program. So how do you work through the possibility of employees' values not aligning with the management's values? So there's a number of ways to do this. One is hire. You need to hire based on values. Whenever you are hiring people, make sure the hiring process includes questions where you're asking people specifically about what they value and making sure that their values align with your organization values. Then when you have someone within the organization, your job is to either coach them up or coach them out of the organization. So when you're coaching them up, you need to coach them up through the lens of values. And so you need to, one, if you need to make sure that they're aligned with the values of the organization, you need to allow the individual, one, to articulate their personal values, and 2, affirm those values, because individuals will not change or will not be open to change unless they feel heard. And so if an employee's values do not align with management, I think you have to place them on a track to either improve their capacity, allow them to fulfill an unfulfilled value or need outside of the workplace if it cannot. 3, help them change a role so that core values are actually being fulfilled within their role, so that their soul is aligned with their role within the organization. Or 4, you coach them out of the organization. And I've been involved in a number of organizations like this. Very good people, very smart people with very strong values that did not align with the organization. And thank you very much. We love you and we appreciate you, but your values do not align with this organization, and let's help you find that next step in your career. Can you comment further on your remark that leadership values are different in different cultures? So for example, if all of us grew up in the same valley in South Saxony, Germany, we would have gone to the same Catholic church, we would have gone to the same schools, we would have had similar family interactions, and then we would grow up, and then we'd start working in our manufacturing factory in southern Saxony in Germany. And there would just be an understood acknowledgement that all the values we have are the same. And again, this is the difficulty of working in society, working in a business, especially working in a multicultural society, because values are influenced by our birth family. Values are influenced by political leaders we've been exposed to. Values are influenced by our culture. Values are influenced by the highs and lows we've experienced in life. So each of us coming into an organization are coming from very different backgrounds, and we have different beliefs and different values that we express. And so when we talk about leading at its core is about influencing others to take action. I have a vision. I've created a vision of what I want the future to look like. And I have my mission, of how I'm doing it. I'm, making Lego pieces. I'm creating beautiful pieces of clothing, or I'm generating content. That's my mission. And the values is really how I do it. Values are the how. How will I gain influence over you to be most effective in that mission and and realize that vision that I see. So when we talk about different cultures, we need to acknowledge that the way people influence one another is different in different cultures. Whether you come from a deeply religious background or an atheistic background, whether you come from a liberal background, a conservative background, that you'll have different values that you believe, that you express. And within an organization, by defining how you lead and what values you use to dictate your leadership styles within the organization, you can then bring people together and say, this is how we influence one another. We influence one another with respect. We influence one another with openness. We influence one another with teamwork. And I would also say that no one value is necessarily better than the other, because I've been exposed to organizations that have results as a core value. We value results over all outs, or we value brutal honesty. And brutal honesty can be very difficult to digest in certain cultures, but other cultures, it can be a fluid and effective way to get work done. And by defining that this is the way that we do work, this is the way that we lead others, then, and by defining our leadership values, we can then be more effective, more influential, and make sure that everybody is on the same page. So Monica says, values education is extremely critical, and in this current environment, change is critical for success. What are some of your suggestions for furthering the development of center of excellence or schools, development of centers of excellence or schools? So are you, can I ask you to clarify that question, Monica? Because are you asking how to educate people more on values? Is that what you're wondering? I'll give an example of a form of values education. Hi, Monica, I'm seeing you answer. So I'm going to start talking and then I'll let you clarify this, but I'll give an example that I've been involved in recently. As you know, I'm a former Olympian. I won an Olympic gold medal. That's what got me into this management consulting space. It's here, it's there. The other week, I got involved with the Olympic Values Education Program. And we went and we took rowboats to a number of students, and we ran them through a number of games and ran them through a values education program. And values can be a fairly esoteric concept for people to wrap their heads around. And so we use sport and games as a conduit to help these young people understand what values are. And again, values are states of being that make you feel joy, that make you feel happiness, that help you feel in flow. And through the running of a number of games, we were able to put language around different feelings that these young athletes were experiencing. So they went out and did figure eight races. They played kind of a form of start and go, ball games on the water. And each time we would say, what are you feeling right now? That's excellence. Do you enjoy the feeling of excellence? What are you feeling at competition? Do you enjoy the feeling of being competitive? Is this something that you value? Do you value being in a competitive state? And when we're able to articulate what value we enjoy living within, then we're able to wrap our minds around these emotional states. And we can start setting goals in our life and planning our life in a way that allows us to express values more effectively. But I would also say that values education is more effective and more important in middle age and beyond. Because when you're young, you're influenced by your community, by your family. Yet as we age, we start morphing into society. We have to fit in. We have careers, we have businesses, and we have families. And we have to start molding ourselves and becoming slightly different people than we naturally are to find success, to find a way to fit in, to find a way to belong in our society. And as we push down the path of achievement, we can wake up one day and we're 45 years old and we've recognized that we've achieved all that we want to achieve, yet something feels off. And this is the stereotypical midlife crisis. And within that midlife crisis, we have become disconnected with our values. Our role in life has been disconnected from our soul, from who we truly feel we are. And so from a values education standpoint, I'm just looking at your comment now, Monica. What I would say is, one, within the schools, I think it's about providing values education opportunities for teachers, because teachers could have one of the most difficult jobs in society. You're showing up, you're putting your heart on the line. And certainly right now through the COVID crisis, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of adaptation that they're enduring. So if you run teachers through a values education process and help them articulate and affirm their values, reconnect with what they truly value, then one, they'll be much better teachers. Two, they will be able to demonstrate how they live with their values and model a values-driven life. And I would say for young people, for children, young people, young adults, watching an older individual who is values-driven is probably the best form of values education that you could possibly receive. And values education, I'll say, is most effective in a time of crisis, because that's when you can actually use that crisis point to identify which value has been violated and set goals to change the trajectory of your life.
Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate both the thoughtful presentation off the top and then your extra time with all the questions. I know our audience is appreciating that. Thank you so much. This takes us to the end of our journey of values education today and the insights that Adam has provided us. I know for me, it does give a greater sense of confidence about how to navigate change, and I need to be personally more conscious of articulating, affirming, and acting upon values. And as an organization, this is, as Adam pointed out, we are led by our values, and one of them is encourage curiosity, which is why we love to do these sessions, so that we can bring the learning to our client audiences as well as our own team and build upon that. So thank you again, Adam. Thank you to our NSB and Global Speakers team for bringing this to life, and to our audience who have joined us today. I hope you will take this away, make some notes, and share it with others so that you can bring it into your life, both personally and professionally. Thanks again.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody. And, we'll see you online.
Yeah.